Ohio State cannot miss the playoff this year. Why? Their roster's too good, and they have a bunch of options at quarterback. That's really, it's that simple. That's Jay Stevens, Locked On Buckeyes, joining me here to discuss on the show. As long as Ohio State gets to 10 wins, Jay, they're getting into the playoff as an at-large team or Big Ten champs, runners, whatever it would be. I can't see them winning fewer than 10 games with this schedule, which isn't easy, but it's not brutal either. And I think that this roster and this running game is going to carry Ohio State to at least 10 wins, if not 11 or 12.
At least 10 wins, can't miss the playoffs. I'm right there with you as well, Spencer. This team, the quarterback room, bringing in an experienced quarterback in Will Howard is needed this year. If you're rolling into 2024 with inexperienced guys, either Devin Brown or a true freshman and Julian Sand, yeah, they might be able to win some games early and build some confidence, but you may not be as confident as you would be going into the game against Oregon or going to Happy Valley if your quarterback is still a newcomer, if he's still green. Will Howard is not that. He's done some great things at Kansas State where he did them, and I believe he will do some great things in Columbus this year as well. Yeah, 10 wins, we could talk about it. I'm sure we will, but that's something that I think is going to be easy. I think the over-under last time I saw via our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook was at 10.5. I think I might go the over because I would still say 11-1 is probably where the Buckeyes will be at the end of the regular season.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning right now is towards 11-1. I think between Ohio State and Oregon, that game on October 12th in Eugene, whoever wins goes undefeated in the regular season. I think these are the two best teams in the Big Ten. I think they're the two best rosters in the Big Ten. And you look at Ohio State last year, and you know there's an oddly negative narrative around a program that just won 11 football games in the second best conference in the country. But that was with a freshman in Kyle McCord at quarterback. So even if, and this is, of course, an if. Let's say Will Howard goes down with an injury and they have to put in a freshman. Well, what could Ohio State possibly look like? Oh, I know, last year's team that went 11-1.
Yeah.
They would be just fine. Now, the non-conference schedule is something that I find incredibly frustrating because Ohio State is a big brand. They're a college football playoff contender year in, year out, national title contender. And they're playing nobody. Who's going to watch these games, Jay? This goes back to one of my fundamental recurring takes on the show. The worst part about college football is not realignment. It is not the portal. It is not NIL. It is scheduling. Scheduling breaks everything and leads to so many other issues. Michigan has done this for the last couple of years. They played Texas this year, so I'm not railing against their schedule. It's time to rail on Ohio State's schedule. Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall. I know they're taking a page out of Michigan's book here. They're not violating any rules, like Michigan wasn't violating any rules. But what are we doing as a sport? Why is that fun? You can have 2 of those games, but 3, it bothers me. It just bothers me.
No, Spencer, it bothers me too. One thing I do believe about this year, which was a little bit different than normal, I believe they had a Power 5 school or Power 4 school scheduled this year. I think it was Washington. Once Washington joined the Big Ten, you had to throw that out the window because it could be a regular. Well, technically, you could still have it and still call it a non-conference game.
They're doing that in the Big 12, Arizona and Kansas State.
Yes, they are. So I know that it still could have happened, but Ohio State and Washington just squashed the contract, and you got 3 cupcakes. I'm with you. I hate scheduling in college football. I don't like how you have to schedule Ohio State and Alabama 10 or 11 years down the road. Why? Why are we doing this? There's too much money. It makes too much sense to just go year by year. And honestly, I think at the conference level too, I know the Big Ten has, I think it's the next couple of years, their schedule's already lined up. They could go year by year and base your opponents based off your record from the previous year. I think that would make better competition year after year after year. But I'm with you, man. Like, regardless of the whole Washington joining the Big Ten thing or not, Ohio State's non-conference schedule, it's laughable. It's a joke, and I have no problem saying that because I don't like it either. Akron, was it 15.5-point favorites? I'm watching it.
Well, yeah.
Start to finish.
Right.
I might pull my hair out, but I'll still watch the whole thing.
Right, but are a lot of other people that wouldn't otherwise watch Ohio State inclined to watch them take on the the power that are the Akron Zips? No, they're not. Like just one game. Again, one FCS, one group of 5, one power conference opponent. That's what it should be
Whoa,
for everybody.
FCS?
Yeah, no, well, FCS. Well, okay. We don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole of fixing college football scheduling, but this is why I say Ohio State's going to be a boring team for a while until they have a select few Saturdays where you go, oh, everyone has to watch that game. So they opened Big Ten play at Michigan State. I think you could see a score reminiscent of Mel Tucker's last trip to Columbus as the head coach of the Spartans when it was 49-0 at the half. I think it could look something like that. Iowa at home. Yeah, I'm not buying that is any danger for Ohio State. Then they go at Oregon. Why don't we come back to that game? Nebraska at home, win. Penn State on the road. Unless Penn State really shows me something over the first month and a half of the season, I think that's a win. Purdue, win. At Northwestern, win. Indiana, win. And then Michigan at home. Nebraska is interesting, I suppose, but I don't think they're on Ohio State's level yet. This is going to be...
Do you really think a true freshman quarterback is going to come into the shoe and win that game? I don't know.
No, I'm just saying they're more interesting than, I don't know, Indiana with Kurt Cignetti in his first year, or Purdue with Ryan Walters. Like, they'll be a little better, but in Columbus, no, that's not going to happen either. Oregon, Nebraska, Penn State, Michigan. Those are the games that everyone's going to watch for Ohio State this year. How do you see those games playing out?
Oregon, I'll go Oregon last. I'll go Michigan last on purpose. I think Nebraska's a win. I mentioned Dylan Raiola was recently named the starting quarterback for Nebraska. Okay, cool. I'm sure they ironed that out during the recruiting process before he committed, before he signed, but you make that official now. Cool, great. He used to be verbally committed to Ohio State. I think Ryan Day and the players are going to do so much in that game to make him look so foolish, like he's a rookie, because he technically is. So I think Ohio State probably will win that game, no joke, by 20-plus points. I am not exaggerating at all. I think it'll be bad. Penn State, Happy Valley. I don't trust Drew Aller. I don't trust James Franklin in this game. Not with that roster, not with that team. Ohio State wins that game. That's a tough place to play, though. Don't get me wrong.
It is. I think this Penn State team is very good. I also have Penn State going 11-1 this year, and I can see Ohio State losing that game. I think Penn State is closer to their level than they have been in recent years. However, I've watched these matchups play out year after year after year. I would not put my own money or a prediction or anything behind Penn State beating Ohio State even at home, even if I feel like they've closed the gap. I still am going to look at that and go, yeah, I've watched Ryan Day against James Franklin. He wins. He wins. He wins a lot. So that's why I've got that one as a win. But the Michigan game, you and I have talked about that before. Probably the most important game on Ohio State's schedule. Yeah. Even more so than, like, Oregon might be a bigger game from a national implications and ranking standpoint. Yeah. But Michigan's the most important game, and I think Ohio State rolls.
Yeah, I think Ohio State beats Michigan, and it's something you mentioned earlier, and I think a lot of people know about Chip Kelly. Everyone's talked all offseason. Hey, he's going to put an emphasis on running the football. Urban Meyer says it all the time when he talks about this game. The winner of this game wins a battle in the trenches and has the most rushing yards in that game every single year. You can go back 20 years, you can see whoever won the rushing battle wins that game. And I do believe this year with Henderson and Judkins and whoever the third running back is, it may be James Peoples, it could be Caleb Downs, because he's been sprinkled into the running back room every now and then this offseason. I think they'll do enough and do a great job of running the ball better than they have previously over the past 3 years against Michigan. And I've been waiting a long time to say this. I haven't said it publicly, so here, Spencer, it's for you.
Here we go.
I got Ohio State beating Michigan. And I do think this is one of those things that's going to help save Ryan Day's job. If you lose 4 in a row, and let's just say what we said earlier doesn't happen, that Ohio State happens to miss the playoff this year for some reason. If you lose to Michigan, don't win conference, you miss the playoff, Ryan Day's not looking too good right now. I'm not saying he would get fired, but that's not looking too good. Now, he could end the whole thing with a number 1 recruiting class, which that's a huge thing right there. But I do think Ohio State beats Michigan this year for the first time since 2019. Let's go back to that Oregon game, though. One thing I do, maybe I'm a nerd because I am, Spence, you know this. I try to look and see what the capacity is at different stadiums in college football. Ohio Stadium, 100,000 plus. I think it's like 105. Big House, 100,000 plus. Penn State, 100,000 plus. I believe capacity for Austin Stadium is like 52,000. And so every time I hear
If you
about
sell out and have a max crowd with standing room only, I think the records for attendance are in the low 60,000 range.
okay, which makes sense. College football, they find a way to boost like
Yeah.
that way. But I feel like every time I hear about Austin Stadium, it's about how loud it is, how crazy that fan base is, how it's a hostile place to play. And Ohio State's going out there, and they really hadn't been tested yet outside of Iowa. But Iowa, you're not going to have a great offense.
Well, Oregon won't have been tested at that point either. I think both teams go into that one 5-0. I do think Oregon wins the game only because they're at home. I'd lean Ohio State on a neutral field or certainly in Columbus, but because it is in Eugene,
Yep.
I think that's Ohio State's one loss of the year. But certainly that's a go either way sort of game. And I think the winner of that game goes 12-0.
You can win it. Yeah, the winner goes 12-0. I got. It's just tough, man. I think for some reason this is one team that Ryan Day doesn't normally lose to the same team twice. I think for some reason this year, 2021 lost to Oregon. This year losing to Oregon, back-to-back losses to the same team. For the first two times he's played them he's coached against them in his career. It's not looking good for Ohio State, but it's early enough. They'll bounce back. They'll be fine. They'll run the table the rest of the way right into walking into Lucas Oil Stadium for the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, and the Oregon team from a few years ago, like the Ohio State team from a few years ago, very different.
Yes.
Very, very, very,
Yes.
very, very different. But October 12th in Eugene should be College game day, should be one of the biggest games in the country all season long. Jay Stevens, Locked On Buckeyes, joining me here on the show. Jay, appreciate the time.
Man, I really enjoyed it.